Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Chip Berman. I co-own and manage the Out of the Way Cafe in Rockville, Maryland. We're a neighborhood restaurant that sells a little rock and roll and a lot of cheeseburgers. Nothing fancy and only 3 things on the menu over $10. You might be wondering why someone like me is testifying on business meal deductibility. You probably expected Duke Siebert or Mo Sussman. Well, every day a great many business people bring clients to my restaurant to help market their services and close a deal. Today I speak for thousands of middle-class restaurateurs and their employees. Today I represent Suzetta Harrison and Brenda Bishop, a line cook and a waitress in my restaurant, and both single parents with 2 children each. Suzetta and Brenda are here with me today. These are my people, and this is what this is about. I might sell rock and roll at night, but at lunch I serve business customers. They're not drinking 3 martinis, they're working. They're getting in an extra hour doing business by doing it over lunch. The reduction in the business meal deduction is being billed as a last remaining loophole for rich folks in 3-piece suits dining at fancy restaurants while writing it off on an unsuspecting public. But the facts are that a majority of business meals take place in low to moderately priced restaurants like my own. A majority of those using the business meal deduction are small businesses. 1/4 are self-employed. In other words, the perception that the only people using the business meal deduction are the proverbial fat cats is a myth. According to an independent study commissioned by the National Restaurant Association, a reduction in the business meal deduction to 50% means that $3.8 billion will be lost in business meal sales, causing an estimated 165,000 people nationwide to lose their jobs in restaurants, including 2,900 in Maryland. I know it will hurt the kind of business lunch trade I do because it is price sensitive. It will cut into my sales, and that will cut into jobs. Why is government making it so difficult to employ people if our goal is increased employment? Every restaurant person I know has cut payroll in the last year. Labor is the only controllable cost left. I cannot change my rent or my utilities or my insurance premiums. I cannot reduce food and beverage costs. I cannot increase the prices I charge my customers, but I can cut payroll. What will Brenda Bishop, a waitress, do if her tipped income is reduced as a result of these measures? What will Suzetta, who has been with me for 8 years in 2 different restaurants, do if she can't work at all? Mr. Chairman, I hear a lot of government policymakers talking about everyone has to contribute to the economic recovery and pay their fair share. I might remind you that the restaurant industry has already lost 20% of business meal deductibility as a result of the '86 Tax Reform Act. I also want you to know that when you add up the 25 taxes and fees that I pay to government at the state, federal, and local levels, not counting all the other tax measures in President Clinton's package, government gets 5 times more income than I do, and I own the business. Local, state, and federal governments have no clue about the actions each other takes, and all of those actions affect me. For example, the administration's BTU tax will increase my energy bill an estimated 4.5% and cost my business $768 a year. Last year, my local government did the same thing, slapping an energy surcharge on my business that right now costs me $1,200 a year. In the last 2 years, government has increased my cost of doing business in so many different ways that I have watched our earnings shrink by 46%, while our gross sales increased by 11.2%. Those of us who have survived this recession know we cannot raise our prices. In fact, my customers are still complaining about the 1991 price increases caused by the increase in the federal excise tax on alcohol, which lost $212 million in the first 6 months of 1991 over a projected revenue increase of $167 million. The assumption that businesses will simply be able to pass along tax and fee increases to our consumers doesn't cut it in a restaurant like mine. Customers are just too price conscious. Let me explain it in terms that we call cheeseburger logic. My restaurant sells cheeseburgers for $5.25. I net 20 cents. We're already saving as much as we can without cutting our food quality or our labor costs. If we weren't, we'd be out of business already. So if we sold only cheeseburgers and could pay for these new government costs just by selling more of them, how many additional cheeseburgers would I have to sell? The proposed BTU tax will cost me $768. So netting 20 cents on each cheeseburger, I'll have to sell an additional 3,800 cheeseburgers. If I add everything else that hospitality has to bear in the current package, it's more than 150,000 cheeseburgers. And that's a lot of burgers, more than I could possibly sell in a year. I ask you to please consider the overall impact of what you are doing. I know my business has to pay some taxes, but I can't even do that if you're going to pass laws like reducing the business meal deductibility that will keep customers from coming in. So, Mr. Chairman, it all boils down to jobs. If I am left with the choice of reducing labor costs or surviving as a business, which of my people am I going to lay off? And why is my own government asking me to make that choice when our common goals are increased employment and a sustained recovery? Simply put, if the government is going to impose yet another set of new taxes on restaurants, then maybe the government should also tell me who to lay off, Suzetta or Brenda. On behalf of the National Restaurant Association, I would like to submit for the record comments on other aspects of the economic package, including our support for the FICA tax on tips credit you passed twice last year and the permanent extension of the targeted jobs tax credit. I thank you for your patience.
Without objections, all of the written testimony of this panel will be entered into the record.